means
draw a card.
Exactly. The Rusalka cannot fizzle the draw a card spell, so both of Heezy's creatures are dead, and Osip gets to draw a card.
Osip is very wary of Blood Moon in this situation because of the 2 Street Hooligans in Heezy's deck. It's unkicked Hooligan is good times. Osip is
Hooligan comes down as a 2-1 beater.
This game may be over. He's going to telling time for a land and then drop the Tide Star.
Kega coming down. Needs a land in the top 3.
Yeah, 3 cards to a land is not going to be hard.
3 cards. None of them are land.
None of them are land.
None of them are land. 2 of them are Pyroclasms. That seems okay.
Also okay plus. What was the third? I'm sorry, I didn't see. We actually had Bottle Gnomes in our side.
Oh, it was a land. My bad. With 2 Pyroclasms and an Urza land. Kega. Kega comes down. This match is definitely looking good for Osip. All right, there's the green mana. He's finally got green mana, but I think it's a little too late. He needed to 10 Street away the Signet. And, I mean, beefing up those Curd Apes would have been nice, too.
Osip's probably just going to blaze Pyroclasm here. He lost a Searshu Vegeta because he got too greedy on a Pyroclasm.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if he doesn't blaze Pyroclasm attack for 5. Once the Tide Star is down, Heezy cannot remove it. I talked to him about the lack of threatens in his sideboard, and he told me that he thought that that only happens in dreams.
So you get to threaten the
Kega? I threatened dragons and then sacked them to Rusalka and testing a ton, and he's doing really, like... the history is our deck has Giant Solifuge, which was completely untested coming into this tournament.
Okay.
But I tested a red beatdown deck, and Giant Solifuge was just awesome.
Yeah.
And Osip was like, hey, why don't we just play it in this deck? Like we have Ryusi the Falling Star, and it's just like at one point that was just a Mahamoti gen. We were afraid of getting multiple Cranial extracted, and it just allowed us to diversify the threats in the sideboard, like regardless. And
that's a good point. I think a lot of the really good deck builders did diversify their threats against Cranial extraction. I was really surprised how many of the Owl decks, for example, just had all sudden impacts. Like, wouldn't you throw in a couple Gaze of Adamaros just to make sure you don't lose to Cranial extraction on sudden impact?
Really keeping that, like, Josh Ravitz, for example, he got Cranial extracted for Blaze. His opponent despondently looked through his deck. There was only 1 Blaze in the deck.
Right.
And then Josh immediately top deck invoked the Fire Mine for a kill. And, like, Osa probably did it about 6 times. Because we played with both.
Right.
Originally it was 3 Tidings. Yep. And we found that like Tidings was kind of slow. You weren't casting Tidings in the games that you were winning or losing. Like if you were losing, Tidings was like, it might not be enough tempo. If you're winning, it's because you were casting Dragons rather than Tidings. So we mixed it up by initially adding a single Invoke the Fire Mine, and then Blaze just took the last spot. Highly effective. And Osip does not run the Blaze Pyroclasm play. Is Mark really at 8? What would Mark be at 8 from?
I think he's at 18. Yeah, 18. A couple of interesting stories around Mark Herberholz. First of all, you may have seen something about this in the Pro Tour LA coverage. While the Pro Tour was in Los Angeles, Herberholz and a group of guys went to see The Price is Right. Herberholz came on down and actually won $5,000 on The Price is Right, the show that aired in December. It was kind of a hilarious show. I think it's floating around the internet if you Google it. It's worth watching. He had a good time with it. Gerard Fabiano fan club T-shirt. That was fun.
Much more animated than you'll see Heezy in this match.
Yeah, he starts shadow boxing. The other thing that I find really interesting about Herberholz is he went to the beach house with those guys. He was only there for a couple of days, but, I mean, the beach house, there's a bunch of this in the coverage. A bunch of guys rented a beach house, on the ocean, came here a month before the Pro Tour just to have fun, hang out, draft, play Constructed. Those guys put a lot of time into Constructed, came up with a black-white control deck touching green for City Tree and Loxodon Hierarch. They felt like that was a really good fit for the field, but Herberholz showed up just a couple days before the Pro Tour, crashed at the beach house. He was like, I don't know about this. I don't know about this control deck. And he decided to run this one instead, or basically a Gruul deck, and now he's the one in the top 8. So he's representing the beach house, but he's not playing the beach house deck.
Their deck didn't seem very good to me. You'll notice fantastic players out of that. group, and none of them are top 8.
I know. It's an excellent point, especially you look at the fact Keezy isn't the only Beach House person in this top 8. Antoine Ruel also spent a fair amount of time at the Beach House.
Switched decks.
Antoine switched decks, audibled into the Owl deck.
And beat 2 or 3 of the Beach House guys with their slow green, black, white deck.
Right.
Like,
do you think the Beach House just underestimated the presence of the Owl deck?
The Beach House thinks that D2 Gazi, the City Tree, is number 1. So, their theory was that they had more elimination than other decks. They win a long attrition war and then win with D2 Gazi, the City Tree.
Right.
Which is not how it worked out.
No, it just didn't work. I think the presence of the Owl deck had to hurt them a lot. That's they get slaughtered in the late game against that deck. And even against Gifts, it seems like Gifts, either with Greater Good or Gifts or the two together.
Options, I think I just think when you play reactive decks, like if everything doesn't fall into place like dominoes, so many different things can go wrong.
I think in general, control decks rarely win the Pro Tour. It's usually something aggressive, something making threats rather than trying to.
Proactive, I think, is the right. Like sure, Osip's deck, I think you would call a control deck.
No, but it's threats. It's proactive.
It's tap out.
Just a reactive deck rarely win the Pro Tour. That's I think what I meant to say. Just so much more consistent to be proactive and making threats and trying to force your opponent to answer what you've got.
Osip's got 2 Towers of Blaze and a Pyroclasm. Does he have close to Tron? I think he's trying to run the math on how many turns he has to live before he can cook easy. Like, there's so many things that have to go right. Like, he has to not lose his K again.
Antoine Ruel is extending the hand. Craig Jones wins in a sweep. Craig Jones through to the semifinals as expected. 3-0 sweep against Antoine Ruel.
Worst matchup in the history of Pro Tour top 8s.
60 events. I don't think there's ever been a more lopsided matchup. But hey, hats off to Antoine Ruel for getting here. And you know what? With the new payout this year, the new prize payout, everybody who makes the top 8 pockets at least $10,000. So Antoine, I guess he was the 8th seed coming in, so he knows he's going to finish 8th on Breakers. $10,000 for his Owling Mind metagame gambit.
A fine outing. And
he's the first person to attempt to play Ancestral Recall on camera. Perhaps since, I guess, was the Type 1 Pro Tour in Dallas on camera? I don't know. Think Scott Johnson won that Scott Johnson. I think that's the first Ancestral Recall cast on a Sunday stage.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Osip
just Pyroclasms the Tin Street Hooligan.
Just the Hooligan?
Yeah.
Comes with one-handed.
All right. Cheesy points flames to the blood-handed Osip.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Take 6.
Osip to 6.
Go.
Solitude came down. That let both the Burning Trees get by.
Pretty sure Osip's got the kill.
Osip, Blaze, smash.
Well played by Osip.
Blaze to the head.
That would be at 13. Let's see.
He's going to double check the math.
8, 9, 10, 11, 14.
Actually, wait a minute. You have the Signet out there, but you played the...
I had
there, and you played the Minomal on the last turn.
Yeah, I had the Tron already in play.
Yes. But you had 1 tower in play, not 2.
Oh, okay.
Because you played that on the
I mean,
last
I know it was enough because I was calculating from before, but 7,
Okay.
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, so 13.
Wait. 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay.
Yep. Easy confirms that Osip had enough mana, and Blaze gets Osip on the scoreboard. Osip is now down 2 games to 1 against Mark Herberholz.
So, Randy, from the 1-2 position, do you think Osip's got the chops to win the next 2?
He's certainly capable of it, no question.